We know there are many choices in internet radio, and the staff and host of LA Talk Live would like to thank you for choosing the internet's hottest destination for the most eclectic sound and invigorating talk. This is LA Talk Live. We are more than just talk.
Hey, I had to turn that up a little bit. Hear my music. All right, this is Tika Lark Fleming, and this is the January 24th edition of the Black Grrrl Show. Today we're going to do a little bit of a different format. Instead of my regular breaking the table, we're actually going to have a panel discussion in the first half. We're going to talk about the State of the Union for the President Obama that he had on Tuesday. I think that I noticed interesting. He didn't talk about capital gains. Those benefits have cost us Americans over $100 billion. Request on the Transpacific Partnership, fast tracking or trade promotion, net neutrality. To me, if you want net neutrality, if you want a free internet, you should turn into a public utility. So we have a lot of buzzwords going on, but before we get into all of that, I'm going to introduce our guest that we're going to have on our panel. First up, we have Cherise Charleswell. She is a writer, author, poet, activist, independent scholar. She is the creator and the producer of the Wombanist Views Radio and currently serves as a segment producer for Feminist Magazine on Pacifica KPFK, the Women's Issue Chair of the Hampton Institute, as well as the chair of the National Women's Studies Association Social Justice Task Force. Actually, in a little bit, we're going to have Ayanna call in, Ayanna Jamieson. I'm going to give her bio anyway. Ayanna Jamieson lives in Southern California, but teaches for the Sunny Empire State College Center for Distance Learning. She is also the founder of Octavia E. Butler Legacy Network, a community hub that highlights the connection between science fiction and social justice. She lives with her husband and son in the San Gabriel Valley. And finally, we have Alaia Williams. She is the founder of At the Helm Women in Business Conference. Alaia brings her leadership experience of coordinating over 150 business events that have been attended by thousands of small business owners and professionals to the national forefront. Her passion to serve women business owners has led her to create she actually has a podcast called Helm Podcast. I'll just say that. So it's just very really impressive what's going on. So I'm going to start with Alaia. What did you think about the President's State of the Union?
I actually thought it was pretty interesting. There wasn't a whole lot I disagreed with, but I'm sure that we'll get to some things a little bit later on. But I felt like he was on the right track. I think I'm interested to see what some of his actual plans are that he's kind of teased out. But it seems like a lot of good things are coming out of the pipeline. So I'm definitely hopeful for his remaining time in office.
Okay, thanks. And what about you, Cherise?
I would agree. There was a lot that I did not find anything wrong with what he was stating. I agreed with it. I wondered, where was this man 6 years ago? That's the first thing that came to mind, because we're up against a mostly Republican Congress, and how much of this is really going to get done, or how much of it is lip service at this point?
That is very true. Do we have Ayanna on the line yet, or no? We do not have her. I think the thing that was interesting is the same thing. It's what you were saying, Reese. Where was he? Where was this? Where were these policies along? Where were these policies before? But this is not the first time we've had this happen. Under Clinton, so many a lot of black people went to jail. And then at the end of his term, he was like, oh, we should do something about all these black people going to jail. I'm like, well, where were you? Where were you when you started this? And the same thing with the capital gains. A lot of people kind of say Obama is conservative, but he is conservative in some economic ways in regards to Democrats, but this started under Clinton. Clinton is the one that cut the capital gains and kind of kept that whole fiscally conservative economics, but socially liberal. Let's kind of go to the I want to start the TPP, because I really want Ayanna on the line when we start talking about the child care credits, because she's not here because she is taking care of her child, so of course she's exactly
makes sense.
It makes sense. He talked about wanting to fast track the trans promotion authority, and which is a Trans Pact for the Transpacific Partnership, which is fast tracking it. Where do you have any thoughts on that, Reese?
Ooh, too many thoughts, and then where do you start? I mean, it's been called by many now the NAFTA and steroids. It's pretty much more what you see as far as deregulation. There's not going to be regulation on land use. Mm-hmm. We're worried about the types of food we have. We're talking about Monsanto. Forget about food regulations. That's out the door. Natural resources. I mean, it's pretty much giving that corporate 1% exactly what they want, the right to do things without their hands being tied, without any regulations or any feedback from the workers themselves, especially in people offshore out of the U.S. as much as here in the U.S. I mean, it's pretty much anti-labor in every way and anti what they would like to call this middle class. I don't know if we're going to get into this middle class economics, that new terminology that just got thrown out there, which I think it's unwillingness to say the word poverty or working class, because most of us are working class. If you're not working, if you don't, get dividends, you're working class. Let's be honest. So,
No, exactly. I mean, and let's go to Alaina. Do you want to have any comments on that?
It's definitely an area that I would need to do a little bit more research in and educate myself about. But what I have heard is these things about the deregulation, and with so many people who are concerned about their food and where it's coming from, and what we've seen happen with GMOs and all this stuff, Monsanto. What does this mean for that? Are we digging ourselves into a deeper hole? I mean, I'm wondering how the American public is going to rally behind this, or what the turnout's going to be.
Well, to me, the Transpacific Partnership turns it turns corporations into countries. And so, and people are like, well, we did fast track, because if we don't decide, then China's going to decide, make all the choices. Well, I'm like, okay, well, if you want to hurry up and decide, then release the document so that we can decide and make a choice, so we can go, if it's about us, we have to do it as quickly as possible. Well, release the document as quickly as possible. We have this thing now, it's called the internet. It's pretty easy to do that. Go ahead.
That's a critical point there. A lot of what's being done with TPP is done in secrecy. It's not out in the open. It's done in a public forum. I mean, I don't even think there was an opportunity for public input on what's going on. It's just that we have to do it quickly, so we can't tell you about it.
I know Current Price has seen it. I know Current Price has seen it. Because I called his office and asked him about it. I'm just saying, because I saw the document. I saw from WikiLeaks. That's how I get my information. But that's okay. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I think that you have to be skeptical when something has to be done so quickly that I cannot show you all the details.
We're trying to help you. Don't worry. It's great. Yeah. He talked a lot about the corporate tax rates and giving us, different tax rates for the children. And, that's great. But to me, it's like, okay, let's talk about let's see here. The capital gains tax, and capital gains is the money that you make on, on investments, real estate, stuff like that, which most rich people get their money on. Okay, that's kind of like how they make their money. There was no talk about that, and their tax rate has been going down lower and lower and lower. Like Romney, had a 14%. 14%. I mean, I know I don't pay 14% taxes. I don't understand why that wasn't brought up. I mean, I thought that was kind of a major big deal. That's cost us like $100 billion. And I don't understand when they plan on. Let's see here. It says the gap that has been widening for 3 decades. Since 1980, the top 1% has doubled its share of the national's income from 10% to 20%. Let's see here. And so their tax rates have been dropped. Since 1981, the top tax rate was never lower than before 1981. The top marginal tax rate was never lower than 70%. Under Dwight Eisenhower, it was 93%. So when people talk about, in the good old days, we didn't pay taxes, that's not true. Even after all the deductions and tax credits available to them, the rich paid around 54%. The top tax rate now is 35%, and the tax rate on capital gains is only 15%. I mean, how does that happen? I mean, do you think Americans think that at some point they're going to be billionaires? This is why they're like, whoa, we have to help the two people who have that kind of money.
You start really to wonder if that's what they're thinking. It's a dream, that American dream that they're holding on to, which is more of a nightmare, because this is not what's happening. I mean, this recovery that he talks about, he gives us the anecdotal story of Rebecca and Ben and how they're getting along, and I'm like, wait a minute. We all know this small recovery that we're seeing, most of that has gone to the top 1%. It has not trickled down, and we know that trickle-down economics never worked anyway, but we give bailouts to corporations, but Americans are still waiting for their bailouts. I mean, people are still waiting for their student loans to be forgiven. Claim bankruptcy. It's still following you. So, I mean...
Exactly. Let's give Alaia a little chance to jump in here. Let's go to the child... I'm going to get paid sick leave. Okay, in America, we're the only country today. Well, it says here today we're the only advanced country on earth that doesn't guarantee paid sick leave, paid maternity leave for our workers. 43 million workers have no sick leave. So it forces parents to make a gut-wrenching decision. This is President Obama. This is not me. Gut-wrenching decision. Choice between a paycheck and a sick child at home. So, I mean, what are your thoughts about that? I mean, that sounds like a good idea.
Well, I don't know if it's a gut-wrenching decision, but I think for many people it can be a tough decision. I mean, I was raised in a single-parent home, and, you know, there comes that time, and my mom did have sick leave, but I can't imagine what choices she would have had to make if she didn't. So I think it's great when the option's there, and when you look at other countries that do have sick leave, maternity leave, paternity leave, I mean, I think those are great things. So I don't know what it's going to take for us to have those things here on that level where we're operating like these other countries do. I mean, there's always there's that acquaintance time when any change happens, but I think that we've been behind the 8 ball on that, so I think it's a good thing.
Yeah. What about you?
Completely agree. The whole fact that she brought up paternity leave, that's something that Americans don't even know what that's like. So they're probably sitting there thinking, what is that? In some countries, even the father gets up to 12 months off. Here and there, they don't usually take the full 12 months, but it is available to them. Another thing that he didn't even mention was vacation. I am tired of the amount of work that Americans do. Our productivity is up. Our wages are stagnant. The rest of the world, post-industrial world, even what they call the global south, they have higher rates of vacation than Americans. I mean, 2 weeks out of 52 weeks a year. And then many do not take that because they don't even get paid time off. Because they're, again, in that group of people that he forgets to mention, those who are working class or quote-unquote in poverty, that vacation and paternity leave, sick leave, all that is something they don't even have a concept about in their lives.
Well, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, yeah, that's what I'm wondering. When we get this paid leave, or paid sick leave and maternity leave and things like that, like what's it going to look like in the real world for us at that point? So, you know, it sounds great, but what's it look like in the execution phase?
I want to know exactly, like, in order to get sick leave, apparently you have to have a job now, or have one job. Nope. So, I mean, I don't know about you, but I have more than one job. Do you have more than one job?
Yes, and there you go, because who's going to get the sick leave? Someone who works 40 hours a week? What about when your job plays the game of keeping you at 30 hours and you get no benefits?
And I think it goes back to means-based. This is a problem with the United States. The only thing we have that's universal, truly, is our public school system, K through 12. Even our so-called universal ACA healthcare is not. It's not universal because it's based on, do you have money? If you don't have money, putting you through all this paperwork. So the thing is that in a lot of countries, it's like if you're a hairdresser, if you have your own business, no matter what job you have, they kind of go, what's the average amount of money you make? And this is what you're going to get during your sick leave. This is what you're going to get for your maternity leave. Why don't we have that in the U.S.? Like, what's going on?
We have people who still believe that those policies are somehow too socialist. You bring up the school. It's fine being a socialist when it comes to schools. Well, in this case, K through 12. Yeah. Or when it comes to your police department, it's fine being a socialist there. Or your fire department. But on other policies, no, you can't be a socialist. So we have to pick and choose where it comes in, where we're going to be capitalist or socialist. And I think that's just a great divide, and especially outside of quote-unquote progressive states. When you get into the purple and red states, there's that level of confusion there.
And again, that's why I said we're kind of behind the 8 ball on this. Like, other countries are doing it. It is more universal, and somehow we haven't been able to figure that out. I don't know.
And then we have the childcare. We're talking about that, but universal childcare. How are women supposed to work? How are anybody supposed to work? It's like now they're putting you in jail if your kids go to the park. Yeah. So I don't understand the reasoning why we don't have universal child care. Why do you think, okay, we have the tax credit now. They said they're going to have a $3,000 tax credit towards per kid. But
that might cover 1 or 2 months of child care. Because child care is as much as college tuition. Let's be honest. If you look at the rates that people are paying for these daycares and after school programs, it's a college tuition.
Yeah, I don't know if it's nationwide, but it's definitely expensive here in LA.
Especially for infants. They give you. It's like the people who are privileged. They get 6 weeks maternity leave, and they have to take their little baby to a school, and they're paying like $4,000, $5,000, $10,000 a month for infant child care. Why do you think we don't have universal child care? Why can't it? To me, you have K-12. why can't you just extend that backwards to babies?
Exactly. In the
what do you
foundational
think?
period. I completely agree. I used to think about that. Let's extend it to a younger age and make sure that these kids, once again, for people who can't afford to send their kids to those great schools where they're getting an early start on life, they're going to the local babysitter where they're probably propped in front of a television. So by the time you do start K or pre-K, you're already behind the other kid that's already been in this illustrious school and learning things while you were just pretty much sat in a corner because your mom's busy at work.
Yeah.
I mean, I was lucky to have a great babysitter, and I think, not everyone is that lucky. And so when my mom found her, she kept me there. I was with her for 12 years. So, and, but it's, again, we are so behind the 8 ball on that. And we value education, or we say we value education, we value children in our future. We need to put our money where our mouth is, so to speak. And, the $3,000, again, it's just a dent, but at least it's better than nothing. But, it shouldn't necessarily pay for the fancy private,
Sure.
But it should pay for quality of care, and there should be quality professionals taking care of our children, and that's like a whole other issue. But hopefully this is something that spurs job creation. If more people are able to get this childcare, hopefully we'll be able to hire more qualified and caring childcare providers, and hopefully it all feeds a good cycle here, but it's definitely a small start.
Well, I was wondering about the Equal Rights Amendment. I mean, if the Equal Rights Amendment passed, all this stuff would just be taken care of. Like, of course, if women wants to work and you want to give women equal access, you pass the Equal Rights Amendment. Why can the Equal Rights Amendment pass? I mean, that has nothing to do with the actual State of the Union address, but that's always something in my head. Okay, I would like to say, I'm going to read about the NAFTA. I know that this is kind of like, but because I think it's all connected, okay? NAFTA was passed under Clinton in 1993. I think it's really important that people who are Democrats understand that these aren't all, because they were like, oh yeah, it's a Bush policy. No. It's a corporate policy, and Democrats are corporate, the Republicans are corporate. Okay, NAFTA was passed under Clinton in 1993. The North American Free Trade Agreement under the General Agreements on Trade and Tariff in 1993. Until 1993, the United States of America was the world's economic king, and our people enjoyed the highest standards of living in recorded history. Now we're saying, like, we want another trade agreement because this time it's going to be better because you know what? The corporations, they really want to help. I just can't, I just feel like this is all connected in regards to all the things that are happening to us. I think they're all connected. I mean, let's kind of like jump to another subject on the, I'm sorry, I kind of get like, I'm sorry, I'm going to be moderated. Okay. We're going to talk about, he said, abortions at an all-time low. Is that a good thing? I mean, is an abortion, like, is it a choice, a subjective thing? I mean, is it like, oh, well, people are choosing Coke instead of Pepsi? Isn't that great? Like, to me, that's how I view it. I mean, it's like, how are you going to make a judgment about that? Okay.
I don't even know how to even address that. Is abortion at an all-time low? It may be, but that may say another benefit of that is that then we're doing a better job of preventing unwanted pregnancies. Mm-hmm. So there's a positive way to spin that instead of saying, oh, well, they're not out having those abortions anymore, so we don't need that option. We still need that option, but we should also still focus on the prevention, the Plan Bs, the, sex education in the schools, anything you could prevent these unwanted pregnancies.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm hoping. I haven't checked the actual stats, but based on what he said, if it is at an all-time low, I'm hoping that it's because of prevention and education and comprehensive sex ed and all that stuff. Yeah, the abortion is a tricky subject, and again, a whole show of its own. But my hope is that it's more due to prevention and better education and more access to resources. Though, within the last year, we've had a lot going on with women and access to healthcare and things like that too. So.
Yeah, it's like you're trying to roll back. That's what I'm kind of like wondering. Like, where were these taking place? Like places where they bombed all the abortion facilities so they couldn't get an abortion. Is that why? Is that why it's gone down? Yeah. I mean, I don't know that. I need to look that up. I need to go to Google and find out. I need to go to Wikipedia. No, I'm pretty sure. I mean, these are all these okay. Then we have community college. Okay, I mean, yeah, that sounds great. Like, I mean, the 2 years of free community college. How can that be bad? So, what do you guys think, Alaia?
I hope it's not bad. I think it's great. I think in theory, and again, a lot of countries offer that post-secondary education for people for free. Mm-hmm. I wonder where we're going to pay for it, where we're going to sacrifice in other areas, and how we're going to get it done. But if we can do it, I think it's a great thing. I mean, I would have loved that when I was in school. I would have loved that opportunity, and I know many would have as well. I know that many people who didn't go to college because they couldn't afford it could have had at least a little more education and, you know, a better chance.
I completely agree. I think my first 2 years of undergrad, I saw the price of private college and turned that down and went over to community college. It was not cheap then, but it was a lot more affordable than the private college at the time. So if it's going to be free, I'm just saying, please forgive my first 2 years of school and refund me on that student loan, Sally Mae. But for everyone else,
Sally Mae.
Yeah. But I think it would be a great idea. But once again, how are we going to fund this? How are we going to fund this when tuition is so high already? So you're going to have to admit where the money's been going. Why are all the professors now no longer tenure track? Why are they being adjunct professors making $24,000 a year with PhD? So you're going to explain to me where has the money been going that now you can still pay the professors and we pay for free? I want to know where the tuition money is going now.
Yeah, where it's been all this time.
All this time.
But it's very interesting now because if we do offer it for free and more people are able to go, are we building more community colleges? What then happens now that we've kind of open the floodgates in that way when it does happen? So I'm just curious to see how this is going to have an impact. But I know that I think if that option had been available when I was leaving high school, I probably would have gone to community college first before going to the expensive private school that I'm still paying for to figure out and, you know, get those, you know, basic education classes out of the way before determining what I wanted to do and then going to a private college. So really wish it had been there when I was in school. But yes, when we make this happen, well, where has the money been going up until now?
You know, up until 1980, Cal States were free in California.
I heard about that. I'm still a little salty about
Before
that.
I was born. So again, we didn't get the benefits of this.
I don't understand. How could these schools that have been around for 40, 50 years, how could they be free? Oh, and that's weird. You know, how, like, you know, right around 1981, when we went back in this other, we forgot what we were talking about happened in 1981. Before 1981, the top marginal tax rate was never lower than 70%.
There you go.
So after, like, the 80s, when they start kind of like, you know, let's let the rich just do whatever they want. Did they just start? I mean, I wonder is that because I mean that's how they could pay for it. Apparently, you know, get rid of these, you know, raise the capital gains tax, and apparently you could do all kinds of wonderful things. That's how they're going to pay for it.
Yeah.
I hope they don't come and get me though. But go ahead.
No, that just goes back to the issue of money and the issue of looking at the Citizens United decision by the Supreme Court. You're asking, why is all this happening with the trade agreements? It's happening because corporations have paid your politicians to fast track it. So we elected these politicians, but we don't own them. See, they should really wear their badges when they're up at the podium speaking so we know who owns them, who we should actually go and campaign towards or advocate to, because the politician you're looking at is not the person who's making the decisions. It's the person behind a boardroom desk. So until we get the money out of there, until we join MoveOn.org and all these other associations have signed on, that should be our focus.
Yeah,
because all of that we're talking about, tax rates and trade agreements and wages for people are not going to change until we get the corporations to stop buying our politicians who make these legislations.
Yes, exactly. I mean, go ahead. You have to think.
No, you know, in my head, I'm always thinking that's a much needed thing. How do we do that? And how do we make sure that this stuff is getting done? You know, I don't know how we fix that. It's so broken and people are so entangled. These politicians are so entangled with these industries and corporations and things like that. How do we undo the mess, you know? So I totally agree, but in my head I'm always thinking like, how do we do that? You know, what's our first step toward, you know, a bit of correction?
Yeah. I agree. It takes a little bit of movement building. That's why I put out that one organization, and you link to them. There's a lot of people doing the work, but if people don't talk about it and if we don't have a movement building, nothing changes because it's a few people want it to change. If you don't have a movement, good luck.
Yeah.
Well, the First Amendment is for people. It's not for corporations. I think that there, actually follow the Constitution. I think that would be step one. Oh, look at the Constitution.
You would think the Supreme Court justices will know the Constitution, but apparently not.
Yeah, apparently this is not what they do. I mean, this is okay. Then, you know, as far as kind of like solutions, okay, this is what I thought in my own head. I'm thinking, okay, they don't have enough jobs. There are not enough jobs. Everybody's going to college because they need to get a job, but we have all this. Maybe we should just do the end of working. Maybe we should have like a new world where it's the end of working. I mean, they talked about in Manitoba, Canada, they had this thing called the minicum, and each family received enough money to like pay the rent and to do like a few things. And what happened was mental illness went down. People finished college. Good things happen. I mean, it wasn't like, they thought like, people are just going to, if they just get free money, they're just going to go insane. They're just going to drink and, do all kinds of things. They're going to buy big TVs. No, it didn't happen. So, I mean, what do you guys think about that? Maybe, we're always talking about what jobs can we get. Why do we have to have, why do we need a job? I mean, I don't know. Maybe that's outrageous, but.
I'm like, this sounds wonderful. They get paid to be at home.
I think, it doesn't sound wonderful to me to get paid to be at home. In that sense, I think work is a good thing, but this is the first time I'm still processing because this is the first time I'm hearing about this thing in Canada. But I think, if people are provided with that basic level of, care and they know that they can survive, then it becomes more about, like you said, they weren't buying big TVs with it. Well, if you want the big TV, you're going to go out and get a job, or Tommy, go get a summer job and pay for that thing you want. Or you're 16 and you want a car, go get a job so you can pay for the gas and the insurance. So, those luxuries and things, you still would need to work for them if you wanted them. So it's an interesting concept. I'm one of those weird people that works and likes to work and would continue working. But I mean, it sounds great. I mean, I think Canada's awesome, but that's a whole.
Well, they did another experiment. It was actually in Kenya. It's like I got this on NPR. It said to see what would happen if you gave people money. This thing was called Give Directly. And they gave people money, and they thought, okay, did they spend it on tobacco, on alcohol? No. Instead, what happened was they invested in their kids' education. They invested in their own health care. They bought better food. They bought money to buy cows to start and they started businesses, and their kids went less hungry because they gave them money, because it's like they weren't stressed out. Like, once you have that basic met, you could do more. People didn't stop working. That's what they thought would happen. They thought people would stop working, and they didn't.
So what I'm wondering is, who were these people that were given the money? Like, where were they before they got the money? Were they the super poor? Were they the middle class? Like, where were they, then? Because I'm wondering how that impacted their behavior. Like, I'm a pretty moderate spender now, so if I stopped working and someone gave me the same amount of like money I would need to live on, I'd probably make the right choices. But I wonder, someone in a different situation, how they would respond, and also, does their behavior change over time as they keep getting this money? So it might be nice at first, and everyone may kind of behave, so to speak. But once they get used to this, what happens then? Does the productivity drop later? Like, I wonder how long these policies have been in place, and, if there's been any tracking on people over time. I'm just curious.
I think that's a good point, especially from a generational standpoint. We see what happens to people who, the past generation, their grandfathers probably made the money, and later on they get so comfortable and feel entitled, so maybe they're not going to be as great at handling the money or appreciative of what they have. So it just depends.
So you guys are like the anti-working crew. Forget you guys.
No, I think it's good to have, if you're working and doing something that you love, then you don't mind working. And if you, even if it's pay me to do something creative or do something else, whether you're a scientist doing something, or you're not feeling taxed to write another grant. So you can get money to go back to the research that you love that will actually give something to the world. So I think there's a good positive of getting this money without having the restraint of feeling like I have to work hard at it just to do things that I would like to do.
Okay. You know what? We're going to wrap up because we had a great talk. So I'm going to have each of you tell people how they can get in touch with you. So, Cherise?
Wow, okay. Many different ways. I do a show, Wombanist Views Radio, so you can find that on Facebook and send me a message. Tell me what you think about the show, about the guest, or if you would love to be a guest. We could collaborate there, and
yeah, it's the same for me. You can find me a lot of places. I'm everywhere online. I have 2 podcasts. So the easiest thing to do is go to my website, alaiawilliams.com, which is ALAIA Williams.com, and all my links are there. Information about what I do, my shows, all that good stuff.
And I will make sure to put their links underneath here so that you guys can check out my guest. I think we had some technical problems that we did not get to speak to our other guest, but I'm going to have her on another time. So I'm so sorry, Ayana. I'm so sorry about that. So we're going to have a little bit of a break. But if also you can check us out at theblackgirlshow.com. I can't remember the name of my website. A 365, LA Talk Live, and you can always find me on Twitter, hashtag Blackgirl, BLKGRRRL. Grrrl. I know, it's so hard, But thank you guys so much. We're going to have June Edmonds up. So now we're going to go out to a break. So thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
It's working. It's working. It's working. Baby, it's working. It's working. It's working. It's working. This is counterclockwise music for your eyes. No longer can we sit and shit. It's time to rise. Life full of maggots, niggas and flies. Trash, ash, and cash. Where does the truth lie? As the youth cries, hate subsides. The planet is terrorized, leaving no place to hide from that third eye.
Downward.
God is a mirror in the sky, color outside the lines. All in time, all this time in the mind. Unfulfilled ambition, broken ladders decline. Red wine, white lines, blue collar crime, stars got us blind. Nation on the decline, flat line, your lifeline. Free. What does the future hold for me? I've been punished for my crimes, but still I can't find peace of mind to set me free. It seems that I've become my own worst enemy. Tell me who to trust when I can't trust me. To my demise, I live fast, drink fast, fuck fast. Life's a lie through the eyes of the deprived. What crime pays and love is a waste of time. Where I'm from, you either play sports or rhyme, sell crack, a dime, born black, back in the line. Got to have a little esperanza to get by. Baby, hold your head up high and don't ask why. We got to die. Don't know why we got to die. What does the future?
Hello, this is Tika Lark Fleming, and we're back with the Black Grrrl Show. Before we introduce June Edmonds, I want to let you guys know that to make sure to listen to Feminist Magazine on KPFK. We're going to be interviewing the Radical Brownies, which will be awesome. And also look at my super rad Surly Ceramics necklace. This part right here, it says no sexism. Surly Ceramics by Amy Davis Roth. So I'm very happy I got that as a gift from her. So thank you so much, Amy, if you're out there watching. All right. So now we're here with June Edmonds, artist, teacher, MFA from Temple University, Tyler. Yes. But before we go into your art, I have a question for you. What's your favorite place to have dinner?
Anywhere with a view. Okay, so I'm.
Make sure you get the microphone so we can hear you.
Living in San Pedro now, and there's a place called Nelson's.
Okay.
That is right on the water, and that's my favorite place right now.
Oh, Nelson's in San Pedro.
It's in Palos Verdes, actually.
Palos Verdes. Okay,
yeah,
okay.
Down the street.
Okay,
yeah.
Down the street. I didn't realize that San Pedro and Palos Verdes were so close to each other.
Yeah, they're neighbors.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to read a little bit of your, actually I'm going to read your artist statement. I want them to uplift, inform, set straight, and motivate people to who they are, and if they don't crack open a book, to find out. That was like on your Metro. Yeah. That was on your Metro piece.
Yeah.
I mean, what does that mean exactly? I mean, I know what it means, but that's kind of like you can expand on it a bit.
Right. so that information is still new to a whole lot of people. The information that's on the MTA, and I've never really talked about the history so much about it. I think it's pretty self-explanatory to people that already know, which is basically us, So who needs to crack open some of the books? Well, the books that I cracked open to inspire me for that work are Ivan Van Sertima and Runoko Rashidi and people like that. And so the mainstream hasn't cracked those books open yet, so I don't think they know what they're looking at when they see, especially the south-facing panels.
No, I really like your. I like that station style. I always wonder, like, who is that? And I was like, oh, that's June.
Thank you.
So it's just, So I have to say this. You are so adorable. I know that's horrible to say that, but I was looking at her like, she's so cute.
I
know
appreciate that.
Yeah, that's probably a weird statement. People probably don't say that to guys, but I'm just like, oh, she's so cute. I don't know. That's a. I hope I never had that. I was always like one of those really tall people that were just kind of like. I never got to be that person.
It's so funny how you recognize those kinds of things about other people, but not yourself.
Yeah. So, you were raised in Los Angeles.
Yes.
What neighborhood were you raised in?
Well, many different neighborhoods. So from around Mid-Wilshire, View Park, basically.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
So I was kind of want to know, like, if people want to share, what high school did you go to?
I went to Palisades High School. I was bused out there.
Oh,
yeah.
So you're from like the first little crew of people that were bused like far away.
Very much so. So my sister went to Crenshaw,
and
then my brother went to Palisades, and so by the time it was time for me to go to high school, I should have gone to Birmingham.
Okay.
So there were a few of us that got into Palisades and was called with a permit with transportation. So PWT, that's what I am.
PWT.
Yeah, and many of my colleagues, at the time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we used to call the MTA the RTD, and we used to call it Ralph Trent's Derby.
Yeah.
Ralph Trent Derby. Well, like I don't know if like my friend made a joke. I was like, oh, you give me a ride like Ralph Trent Derby. My friend's older brother made this joke and was mocking me, and I was like, what? Oh, this is some kind of joke. It's not funny at all. Okay. So I mean, so then you're in LA.
Yeah.
And you decide at some point, you went to Maine at the beginning, right? You went to is that Maine?
First to San Diego State University.
Oh, San Diego State. Okay, you went to San Diego State, and then you go to Philadelphia.
Yeah, after Skowhegan.
Okay. Yes. That's what I could not pronounce that, but
Maine
like I don't know what that is. She'll say it for me. Okay. So I mean, what was that? What was that? I mean, was that
Skowhegan is a artist residency for people that are still students. So it was really sort of the first artist residency that I had done. Okay. And I went to undergrad at San Diego State, and I was very fortunate to have the teachers that I had. Okay. And they're the ones that told me about that place. Okay. So I didn't know anything about it, but they suggested that I go there. So I was very blessed to have the teachers that I had, Joy Shipman and Pat Colley, at San Diego State. So I got a full scholarship there. And so it was about 6 weeks, I don't remember, about 6 weeks of being in the middle of nowhere. Well, that's Skowhegan, Maine. Yeah. But we were there with other artists. There were like 60 other young artists that were there. We shared studios, so there were about 6 big studios. There were 6 in my studio. And then we had visiting artists, and, the visiting artists were everything, So we had artists like David Hockney come, and Louise Nevelson, I think she was there that year. Who else? Oh, Frank Stella was there. So just these huge New York artists were there, and it was awesome, and it still is. It's still going. So
it was kind of that was kind of like a golden period for that. I mean, of the East Coast art kind of.
It was.
So I'm always kind of sad because I always wanted to be part of the 80s.
Really?
You probably can tell by my whole little outfit and stuff. But I've always wanted to be part of the 80s. I was like,
I was wondering why I was liking your attire.
yeah. No, people from the 80s, they love me because I'm like, I like the 80s music. I have kind of like 80s clothes on. And I always thought because of the, the art, the literature. I mean, a lot of people kind of, people thought it was like, they think of just Reagan, but it was a really great time for art, in the 80s. Yeah. And the music, all of the above. Yes. Yes. And so I guess that's why you decided to go to. Is that why you decided to go to Philadelphia instead of?
I wanted to be on the East Coast. I thought that's where everything was happening, and it was, I guess, at the time, but it was happening in New York. I was in Philadelphia. So luckily I had family there. So I was able to visit a lot, and I did visit a lot, D.C., which was, I was very inspired by D.C. as well. The museums are free to get into there, and I, found my early inspiration at those museums as well. Yeah.
It's like it was easier to, I don't know. Do you think it was easier to be an artist then than it is now? It's like in some ways it's easier now, but some ways is it,
No. No. I think there was a lot of inspiration then. There was a lot of inspiration then. There's a lot of inspiration now. But it's kind of that crack open a book thing. It's like, well, where is that information and where is that inspiration? It's back in those days when I was going to school. Yeah. And for instance, I wanted to write a paper. I was taking a class in 20th century sculpture, 19th century sculpture, so at Temple University Tyler School of Art. So who I was learning about, of course, were the white artists, the great white artists at the time. But I wanted to write a paper about how Matisse was influenced by African art. You went into the library back then, and there was no documentation on anything there. When I was in undergrad, I was looking for books, about black artists. There were 3 books back then. 3. So you have the amazing show that Cecil Ferguson was instrumental in having over at LACMA, which was 200 years of African American art. That was one of the books. So that was one of my Bibles when I was in undergraduate school. Yeah. Then there was a book on Romare Bearden, and then there was a book about Jacob Lawrence, and that was it. So it was kind of good enough for me at the time. I was from LA, so I knew about Varnette Honeywood. She was a huge inspiration. But I wasn't getting that information in the 20th century, sculpture class. So I believe that we still do have to bring in sort of our own education. We're sitting up there in these classes, learning, from the instructors, but we have to construct our own education when we're in these classes. Again, I don't think it's as bad as it was then, but that was the hard part back then.
And that's one that you're talking about, just the knowledge of knowing things and understanding. You're not even speaking from the. That's why I think one thing is good about it. You're not taking from the. I want to be in a show. It's about getting in the show. That's not like your perspective. It's kind of like you think you're on a different little level there.
Well,
not that that's bad. I'm not saying it's bad.
I don't think you're saying that at all. I just have lots of comments about that. It's like, we do need exposure. Yeah, we need a certain kind of recognition, of course, that we're not getting, just to see what's going on at LACMA right now. I've worked at LACMA as an art instructor, for the past 15 years, and I'm here to tell you just the people that have been affiliated with LACMA, whose names you don't know, have been putting bugs in their ears, and I think that's why we've got what we have there right now for the sermons. And so I'm walking into the galleries now. I did it 5 years ago. 5 years ago, there were 2 works by African American artists. One, that was Daniel in the Lion's Den, and Daniel was white. Okay, and the other one was. And it's a beautiful painting, so it's not,
No, I know what you mean.
And Chester, that's by Sergeant Claude Johnson. And so you have these people these names that you may or may not know, Cedric Adams, some people that are working, and they're saying, look, we need some more. I'd like to walk through here since I work here and see more images of what LA, this is LACMA, LA. So what does LA look like? And we're not seeing it yet. So here it is. I'm walking to the abstract painting show that Franklin Sermons just curated. And I walked in, I personally wanted to cry. I think I was the only one in there that wanted to cry because I see that there's a large percentage of African American artists that are showing at LACMA right now. And so there's not going to be a photo of Mark Bradford right next to his work, or, you know what I'm saying? Howardina Pendell, right next to her work, Howardina Pendell, just the work that she's done all her life, like Faith Ringo, they were the ones that were taking documentation to these museums and saying, look, the percentage for women in these museums are bad, but the percentage for black women in these museums are even worse, and then walking in and seeing their work in these museums is a huge deal, know. So, but the other side is that LA has so much. I know you know this, but we have so much. I think we have our own university, what I'm saying?
Yeah.
From, I could just start mentioning names, of what we could do on our own for ourselves with what we have, the potential, we have it.
Even though we have a very small, we have a small African American community.
We do, but we've got some heavy hitters here.
Yeah, exactly.
John Oliver's Dominic Movie, Mark Bradford, what he's getting ready to do. We've got Michael Massiford. We got the young people. We've got Zill. We got,
Yeah. Exactly. What do you think's gonna, with Leimert Park? With the new Mark Bradford project, I think it's A&P. What are your hopes for that? I'm kind of very excited. I'm trying to get Mark Bradford on here.
So everybody, I'm sure, is so excited. It's just so excited. It's such a model of how things can be done.
Yeah.
The collaboration. It's a collaboration. He comes in with a lot, but he's got his partner, the city planner, and his inroads with the city, and the homework that they did was amazing, and the consultation they did. We're going to work with these youth, and we want to talk to these professionals, and how can we do this? All that homework they did. Then, of course, the collaboration between him and Norton, it's just...
It's just like I think we're in a real crossroads in black art, Los Angeles art. All of us, we're in a really big crossroad. We can go we can end up being rock stars. We could go into a golden age right now.
We have it.
Yeah, and we have that great potential. I see that you have done a lot of teaching in regards to art and teaching. You have a piece, a mural, in the Inglewood Library.
Yeah.
Intersections. It's called Intersections.
It's called Inglewood Genesis.
Genesis. Well, yeah. Intersections. Okay. Sorry. I was so sure. It's Intersections. It's a mural in the Inglewood Library. You do a lot of. Well, I've seen a lot of kind of mural type stuff that and you worked with the youth of with people at Lock Haven, and you worked with PS
PS Arts Now.
Why? And to me, you feel like you're very. It's like a lot of people who work with kids. It's kind of like, well, I'm going to just do this till I figure it out. But it's like this is something that you are very into, something you're very passionate about. Even right now, you're talking about, we need to let people know about their history and all this. How did that happen? Why is that?
It's my parents.
Yeah.
My parents, they're these New Yorkers, they were brilliant. When I was in the third grade, I knew I was going to college, so I'm like, if I have to go to college, I'm going to San Diego State, back then. And my mother was an educator, so that is why, so she was an amazing person. I lost her when I was 17 years old, but I was blessed enough to have her for 17 years. And so I always deeply admired educators, through her. I still do. The educators that I work with today, I admire for, most of them, So, but when I got out of graduate school, I wanted to get a gallery just like everybody else, and I wanted to teach, but I really, I wanted that art thing to happen as well. I wanted to work on the college level, you know, because there's this dream of working on the college level and having more time to do your work. So I was really more about that. So when I look back on it, it's a huge blessing that didn't happen. It's a huge blessing that didn't happen, because I am so glad to have had the opportunity to do all those projects, you know, and to be in the schools that I am in today and finding what my purpose is there, you know, because it does mean a lot to me to make sure that young people, you know, my students, you know, the school I'm at now, maybe 20% black, you know, 70% Latino, and then I have some white and Asian, Vietnamese mostly, you know, and some Pacific Islanders. And so I love, you know, having this mission of making sure they see themselves on the walls of my room. So my room, I guess, is my fantasy gallery or my fantasy institution, and make sure they see themselves on it, and make sure they understand what they're looking at. You know, so you know, having even a Vietnamese presence on my wall has been very difficult. You know, when you think about what the internet was 3 years ago, we're talking about progress just in the last 5 years. I couldn't find any artwork by a Vietnamese artist. So I found some in the past few years, and I've got some up. And this young girl, fifth grader, comes up to me after class, and she's like, I see that over there. You know? And that kind of thing. So they might not say anything to you, fifth graders, and I've been blessed enough to be at this school for 6-7 years. That means I had that child since they were in kindergarten. So here she is coming. She's like, okay, I see that over there, and it was said in appreciation, and said, like, I want to know who that person is. That person, I could help you pronounce that person's name, you know. And that's what they do. So that is a huge joy and a privilege, and to think about my life without that, you know, that's the kind of artist I want to be. I want to be the artist that has that in their experience. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, if you don't see it's kind of like everybody has like this job. Oh, artists look like this, teachers look like this, cops look like this, politicians look like a certain way. So, and especially now with the arts being taken out of the schools and kind of like, you know, not being, I mean, your school, the school that you're at, they must have, like, this is a great thing that they still have an arts program, and it's real. I mean, I think it's so important for the arts to be in the schools, not to be like some separate thing, because the arts is not a hobby. Right. And I think that really bothers me when I see art kind of like, oh, it's like this thing I do on the side, like, you know, baseball. No, I'm just kidding. I'm like, I would take all the sports out of the school and put arts. I would replace it me, because to me, I feel like, you know, that's what I would do. But everybody's like, well, you know, sports is important too.
It is. It's good for the brain too. You know.
So I mean, it's you know, what is your kind of, what's your dream for the Los Angeles art community? Or, you know, what's your dream for it? I mean, we already talked about that a little bit, but, you know, if you if you could wave a magic wand and make something happen, what would you make happen?
Well, you mentioned Mark Bradford's AMP project, you know, so that's such a great thing, you know, and but the other side is it's still a small population that he's working with.
Yes.
He's perfecting it. But that kind of tells me that all of us could be used to do this on a larger and greater level. So my dream would be to see more of that. My dream would be to see also sort of a kind of thing that is going on in New Orleans, which is sort of that whole Prospect thing, you know? So the Prospect show that is going on there, it's like 40%, 50% African American artists that are being shown. Let me see if I got this right. Like 60% diaspora that's being shown, and maybe about 45 African American percent being shown. And so there's a lot of sort of guerrilla kind of exhibition happening within that show. It's like, okay, the person that developed Prospect actually is a curator by the name of Dan Cameron, who happens to be in Orange County right now.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But he was going to buildings and sort of starting as sort of like a pop-up kind of thing. And so that tells me that with some organization, you know, we could really do that kind of thing here in LA. And like I said, you know, we've got a lot to show and a lot to give here.
And I would like to see us do more, especially African Americans, do more social practice type projects, because we really need to get more. I think that really needs to be a more diverse field, because it becomes like you know, I feel a lot of times when I see these social practice art projects, I feel like we are objects, like African Americans, Latinos. We are
what
objects.
was it before it was called social practice? It was what black artists were doing anyway.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? So
exactly.
So we have a lot of that going on anyway. You know.
Yeah.
So how I think that it's just more visibility and more self-acknowledgement as a people here, you know, more collaboration as a people here, you know, in LA. You know, that's part of that dream, you know.
And what is your favorite, not favorite, but, you know, what, is there a living, or maybe the person that's no longer living, artist that was kind of like your inspiration? Was there something that like clicked? Like you said you were 3 years old, but was there something kind of like was there a person or an event or an art show or a gallery that you went to and you're like, I'm going to be an artist? Did that ever happen?
Well, there were a lot of art shows maybe that I had gone to that felt like home to me. Like going, you know, speaking of 200 years, you know, it's like that felt like home. You know, it's like these people, here's some art. You know, my mom took me to museums. It's kind of a lot, you know. This was the first time, and it was a special thing, because that was one of the last time she took me to the museum before, you know, I lost her. But seeing art that looked like me, with images that looked like me for the first time, and that kind of thing. So the artists that I saw there, you know, Archibald Motley was one, you know. Of course, Alma Thomas, Sergeant Clyde Johnson. These are people that I might not have known those names when I was young and with my mom, but I've learned the names, but the visual memory has been consistent. So I remember looking at the Motley. I remember looking at the Sergeant Clyde Johnson, the Charles White, and those four basically I remember. And that was kind of like that. But
that's great that you actually do remember, like kind of like that moment. That moment that you know. Yeah. That's that, you know. I'm actually so happy to have spoken to you. I mean, I can't believe 30 minutes just flew by. I know. I thought like, it would take, you know, but it was actually just flew by. Yeah. Is there anything that you have going on or you want us to know about?
Sure. You know, I'm gonna be in a group show. I'm pretty sure that's going to be a CAM. They're doing a geometric abstract show, and I'm thinking that it's going to open in August. So I want to talk about, you know, I want people to know about that. And also, I heard from MTA, and they asked me to do a tour for Black History Month. So that's going to be on Sunday, February 28th. And so I'm pretty sure it's going to be on the expo line. So that's going to be.
Oh, that's kind of like almost kind of like your old neighborhood.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like that's kind of like
definitely.
your old neighborhood. So that's actually kind of you even have a special insight. You'll be like, that's where we used to dine and dish. No, I was kidding. You didn't do that. That was just me. I'm just kidding. But thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
I
thank
so
you.
admire your show and what you're doing.
Oh, thank
for
you.
the
Thank you. I
community.
admire what you do. You're just like when I found you, I'm like, oh, look, it's June. You're going to be on my show. I was like, when I found her, like, I guess like at the Flourish Projects. So that is it for the Black Girl Show. I also want to remind you on CAM Thursday, I think that's January 29th. There's going to be a showing of the Lens Darkly, and through the Lens Darkly at 7 p.m. at CAM. It's free, so please do show up. Also, it's going to be a Black Girl meetup, so we do want you to show up, and you can say hi to me. I'll say hi to you. Remember, the Black Girl Book Fair is March 7th. And you have until Sunday if you want to have a booth or you want to be an exhibitor. You have until Sunday to contact me. So, the 25th. So, have a great Saturday. Thank you guys so much. Thank you, June. Thank you, Van. Thank you, Cherise. And thank you, Elena, so much for joining me and being on my panel. You guys have a great Saturday. This is the Black Girl Show. Catch us every Saturday at 3 p.m. And LATalkLive.com. So, goodbye.
They say I'm different 'cause I'm a piece of sugar cane. Sweet to the core, that's right, I got a rhythm. My great grandma didn't like a foxtrot. Now instead she spit, it's nothing but a dram.